Very good evening to you. Back following the Easter holidays. I hope you enjoyed last week's show. I forget what it was now. It was a repeat from previous, but we're very much live here this evening on Sheffield Live TV with another top sporting guest. There's only one person filling the sofa this evening, but by hell, he does fill the sofa. He's a big lad and he's a big name as well, particularly in goalkeeping. Nicky Weaver, Sheffield Wednesday's goalkeeping coach at the academy and a former keeper for the Owls, among several other clubs. Nicky, it's great to see you. Good of you to come in.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you do fill that sofa.
Yes, yeah, it's good job
the ball's not going to go either side of you there, and I reckon even if it goes up into the top corner, you could just about reach it from there, can't you?
Maybe in my peak, not so much these days, but
I'm not so sure. You're only 39. You could still be playing.
Yeah, you see that, Buffon's in the news this week. He's older than me, so yeah. I went to 35. I'd had knee trouble all sort of through my career, so I was quite happy to get to 35. But if you're lucky with your body as a goalkeeper, you can go to sort of 40ish.
You mentioned one of the buzzwords of the minute, Buffon, Gianluigi Buffon, and the game last night, Real Madrid against Juventus, and an incident that we will discuss because there's plenty to talk about in it. We'll also show some highlights of a certain save that you made at Wembley some years ago now, 1999 for Manchester City, in one of the epic playoff finals, probably the epic playoff final, and it also included one of the best celebrations, I think, that Wembley has ever seen, featuring the man here. Yeah, 1999.
Yeah, in some respects it seemed a lifetime ago, and on the other hand it seems like yesterday, and I was only 20 years of age. It was my first season playing the first team, so for it to sort of end like that was fantastic. And at the time, I don't think you sort of realise what sort of significance it's going to have going forward, but the fact that I'm still here now, nearly 20 years later, talking about it is great, and something that I'm sort of proud to be involved with.
Manchester City, Gillingham, if anybody doesn't remember it, we'll bring back those memories very shortly. We'll have highlights of your crucial save in the shootout. We won't stop it there because what follows is even more entertaining. Let's bring it right up to date, to the present, and you work at the academy at Wednesday, having twice been Owls goalkeeper. That was in a loan spell, I think, 05, 06, and then a 3-year spell, 2010 to 13, as Wednesday goalkeeper. But in the academy now, the talk is of the two young goalkeepers who've both been seen in the first team and impressed this season. Joe Wildsmith and Cameron Dawson, of course. Your take on those two and what you've seen of them growing up?
Well, I remember I was playing at the club when they come in full time as sort of apprentices. Cam come in first. He had a great start to his career as a youth player at Wednesday and got international recognition quite early on and was involved in some England camps. And then Joe come in a year behind him, and they've both just developed into really top class young goalkeepers. Obviously, Joe has got the nod on Cameron at the minute, and Joe's becoming now quite an experienced-ish goalkeeper in the Championship. He's played sort of 40-odd games, I think, now for Wednesday. Cameron's been a little bit unfortunate that he's been behind Joe, and Joe's been in such good form, but they've both got, huge talent. They're both good size. They're local lads, which is great. It's great for the academy that they've come through. And I think to have two coming through who are Wednesday fans and from the area, sort of, real good for the club, because I think, as a Wednesday fan myself, and you talk to fans now, they want to see young, homegrown, local lads coming through into the first team.
Yeah, we'll go specifically to those two in a moment, but of course they're not alone. We've seen quite a few young players get a first team opportunity for one reason or another this season. That must have lifted the whole academy, that these guys have had opportunities in inspiring others to think that they can do likewise.
Absolutely, yeah. There's, Jordan Thornley's come in and done well, and there's one or two others as well. And it's great for the whole academy because it gives the players a real sense of, if I really work hard now over the next few months or years or whatever it is, you're going to get a chance in that first team. The new managers, some of the decisions have been forced upon him for injuries, because I've obviously had a real tough time with injuries this year, but they have deserved the chance as well, and when they've had the chance, they've taken it. So it's great for the sort of under-18s and under-23s because they can see the managers taking a real interest in how they're playing.
That was a point that when your boss at the academy, Steve Haslam, was in here, a few weeks ago, he made the point that Josh Lukite was very big on that part of the club, took a particular interest. Is that something that you've noticed as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Often the under-18s train with the first team. not all of them, but 2 or 3 of them. A lot of the under-23s do. He comes to watch a lot of the under-18s games, under-23s games. He's always asking the coaches how they're doing, how's he doing, and he's got the lads in training with the first team, so he sees them on a daily basis. He sees them in games in their own age group, and yeah, he's been brilliant for the academy side of it because he really wants to sort of to promote the youth within the first team.
Has that been a change of direction in that sense? Every manager's got different priorities, but have you noticed a change in that area?
There has been a slight change, but a lot of it's been through the injury problems as well. When Carlos was here, we had obviously a very big squad, and the sort of players that were getting left out of the 18 on a match day squad was, there's still some top players not even getting changed on a match day. So obviously with the injuries, it has sort of, not want to say forced the issue because the lads deserve the chance as well, but it's brought the younger ones to the fore, and when you get a chance as a young player, you've got to take it.
Well, I think both these young keepers have, but just before we come to them, do you get involved in outfield players as well, or do you stick purely to the goalkeepers? Purely
to the goalkeepers. I mean, every now and then, if one of the coaches or another player asks your opinion, obviously you've got it, you pick up, I played the game for 20 years, so you do pick up bits and bobs along the way. You work with different managers and see how different people do different things. So yeah, but I don't actually get involved with the sort of day-to-day coaching and taking the sessions, because obviously I'm the goalkeeper coach and mainly deal with the goalkeepers.
Of course, Kieran Westwood there as well, currently injured, but you go way back with him too, don't you?
Yeah, when I was at Man City, Kieran was an apprentice there. Unfortunately for him, it didn't work out there, and he got released at probably, I think he was 18, but he used to come up and train with the first team a few times. So yes, I'll go back way with Kieran, and he obviously went off to Carlisle and Coventry and ended up having, huge success. And he's been a huge success since he come to the club. Unfortunately, he's been injured a lot of this season, but without doubt, he's in the top 2 or 3 goalkeepers in the Championship. I think his performances over the last couple of years will tell you that.
For a club to be blessed with 3 goalkeepers of this ability is quite unusual, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and obviously, Kieran's very experienced now, both at club level and international level, and Joe and Cam are still, relatively young for goalkeepers, 22 each, I think Cameron's nearly 23. And unfortunately, Cameron's not played as many games as Joe. I mean, he's had a loan spell at Chesterfield this year, which was cut short. I actually went to watch him in a game there, and he did okay. So they're both learning the trade, but you can see how quickly things can happen for young goalkeepers. If you just take Nick Pope, for an example, he was playing at Charlton a couple of years ago, went to Burnley, suddenly gets in the team through an injury, and is in the England squad after probably 20 games in the first team. So,
I mean, it's a long stretch, but potentially is this where Joe and Cameron can aim, realistically?
Absolutely. I mean, they're young, they're English.
Yeah.
Joe's obviously playing Championship football now. They've still got a lot to learn, but they're good lads, they work hard. They're by no means the finished article, so it's, I think as a goalkeeper, you're sort of probably 27, 28 when you probably reach your peak. Maybe even a little bit older than that, so they've got a long way to go. Still, although Joe's starting to get games under his belt, they're still relatively inexperienced in the sort of bigger picture. But, so far they've both done great.
Can you separate them in terms of strengths and weaknesses, areas of the game that they need to work on particularly? Or?
I think as a goalkeeper, you've got to work on all areas of your game all the time. The role of goalkeeper is evolving. Obviously, a lot of people now, they want to play out from the back. The new manager sort of indicated he wants to play out from the back quite a bit. So goalkeepers have got to be comfortable with that, and they both are.
Yeah, it's a new element of goalkeeping that wasn't there when you first started, was it?
Not really.
I mean, just hoof it, really.
Kick it as high and as far as you can, and to the big lad up front sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's how it was then. But I think with sort of Pep Guardiola coming over to this country and the way sort of Man City play and Edison and Manuel Neuer at Munich, the way they sort of sweeper keepers and it's like the 11th player, and it is sort of the way football's going, but at the end of the day, you're a goalkeeper, you've got to keep the ball out of the net. So,
but it is referred to by supporters, I've noticed more and more, the distribution of a goalkeeper. They notice things like that, and if there's a weakness in that area, they will pounce on it. So it's become an extra ability that a goalkeeper needs to have.
It's sort of decision making as well, a lot of it, because the ball comes back to you. Do you go long first time? Do you take a touch, play it to a defender to get it back under pressure? So it's suddenly when you're just going long, like in my day you used to, you had no decision to make. Now you've got lots of decisions to make, and every now and then, even the top ones, you're going to get caught out. But if the manager's wanting to play that way, then...
But a keeper's got to mentally have a note of the left-footed players in the team, the right-footed players, who likes it on one side, likes it on the other, when he's looking to pick somebody out to hit. He needs to know his players, doesn't he?
And you're almost like a centre midfield player. If you pass the ball out there, you've got to be checking your shoulder out there to see what the left back's up to, see if he's free. If you get it back, you can go out there. So you've got to be checking your shoulder and everything all the time, and being aware of what's happening around you. So when you receive the ball, you've already got a picture in your mind.
One thing that good goalkeepers all have in common is a good temperament for the job. I mean, not every footballer could be a goalkeeper because of what that sense of isolation requires in somebody. Do you think that's true?
Yeah,
I'm saying there.
It's a very specialised position. They say you've got to have a screw loose to be a goalkeeper. I think that's becoming probably less and less now as everything's getting a little bit more serious. But it's such a specialised position, and when you do make a mistake, which I can vouch for, it's horrible and it's a really lonely place. But you mentioned the word temperament, and for me that's the biggest thing about being a goalkeeper, because you're in the firing line, you're going to make mistakes, it's how you react from them. And the best goalkeepers, don't make the same mistake twice.
No, it's part of an education. It's not a negative. I mean, Joe Wildsmith's had a couple of games this season where you could pick out mistakes, but it's the way he's recovered. I know I wasn't there and I didn't really see much of it, but at QPR this week on Tuesday, where Wednesday lost 4-2, I believe that there might have been an error there. But it's the reaction, isn't it, to that? And
listen, as a goalkeeper, like I said, you're in the fight. You're going to make mistakes at the top level, at whichever level you play. You're going to make mistakes, and it's how we react to those mistakes. Like I said, Joe, the finger's been pointed at him for a couple of goals over the last couple of months, but you've just got to have thick skin and sort of take it on the chin and be confident and get on with it. But there's been many games where Joe's, saved us. Unlucky on Saturday because obviously we just lost 1-0, but Joe had a terrific game, making a few good saves.
I mean, the save from the Mitrovic header in particular in the first half, which was, for all the world, was going into the top corner.
Absolutely.
For all the world, point blank. That was a super reaction save.
But it's always nice to have a good game and make those saves when you end up getting a point or getting a 1-0 win or something. Unfortunately, we didn't, but yeah, it's just how we react to those mistakes. Yeah,
you talk to goalkeepers though, sometimes somebody like me will say, oh, what a save that was, but they will have noticed something different to admire, something technical, rather than the eye-catching save.
I think all goalkeepers can make saves, else they won't be a goalkeeper. That's, that's what you do when you jump as a goalpost, diving around making saves. Goalkeeping is really technical, and if they don't catch it cleanly or they don't move the feet into line or whatever it may be, as a goalkeeping coach and talking to other goalkeepers, and you get right down to the sort of finer detail of all the technical points. And on, say, Monday morning, before we warm up, we might sit down and discuss what we've seen on TV over the weekend and what we've seen some of the top goalkeepers do, and we all have our own little opinions on it. So goalkeeping is very sort of technical.
Yeah, indeed. Fascinated to listen to, and more where that came from as the programme progresses. Also, we'll be reliving one of your career highlights, but I don't know, it probably is your career highlight from Wembley very shortly. But fresh in all our minds, and I've spent a good deal of time on social media today expressing a view on this, was the Juventus Real Madrid Champions League semi-final, the most dramatic possible conclusion to it. I'm sure everybody knows that there was a late penalty which rescued Real Madrid, which Ronaldo buried with his usual self-belief and panache. A penalty which was awarded, and Gianluigi Buffon just exploded in anger and rage and got himself sent off. So first of all, I thought it was a penalty. What did you think?
I think first impressions probably not, but having seen it, a penalty. It was one of them that could have gone either way. He's obviously given it. Obviously, what was at stake at that time was, Juventus had clawed themselves back from nowhere to get to that point, and then to give a penalty away in sort of 93rd or 94th minute, whatever it was. And obviously, Buffon's just seen a bit of red. Obviously, seen a lot of red after they sent him off. But yeah, he's just obviously lost his cool for a second or two, and obviously paid the ultimate price for it. What could be his last Champions League game.
I know, that's sad. Have you ever lost it to that extent on a football field?
Not really. I'm quite laid back, but I never played in a Champions League quarter-final.
No.
So, but no, I was quite laid back, so I never really lost my rag at all. But I can fully understand it, and it's just.
I mean, the sending off, it had to be red. I mean, you can't protest like that.
No, and.
It had to be. Well done, Michael Oliver, I thought.
Yeah, and he's obviously been heavily criticised for it today in the press, Michael Oliver. So, but he's made his decision, and I think he was left with no choice really. But Buffon has lost his head for a minute there.
Still a great goalkeeper and a legend. Tell you what, let's go back and set the scene. Manchester City against Gillingham, League One playoff final, 1999. Now, There were no goals in this game whatsoever until 81 minutes, when our friend here conceded. Carlos Saba, the former Sheffield United striker, made it 1-0 to Gillingham. Then Robert Taylor, I think, made it 2-0 to Gillingham. Right? Was it Robert Taylor?
Rob Taylor, we later bought. 6 months later, I think we signed him at City.
Right, there you go. So it's 2-0, City are out of it. And from the 90th minute onwards, they score 2 goals. The first goal was scored by, I made a note of this, it was Kevin Horlock, a winger, and then Paul Dickoff, almost with the last kick of the game, made it 2-2. No further goals during extra time. Penalty shootout. Gillingham keep missing, but it comes down to this, with Nicky Weaver in goal for what proved to be the final penalty. Enjoy.
If Clive Butters misses this penalty, Manchester City will be in the First Division next season. Gillingham will stay in Division 2. He has missed it! Manchester City are up! They did it the hard way, but Nicky Weaver calls them forward for the celebrations. Celebrations that are fully merited for the way they fought their way back into it. He can hardly contain himself. Look at him. It's been an extraordinary way to do it, but Manchester City are there. They are the genuine soap opera club. Cliffhangers upon cliffhangers in their fall down the table. They were 2-0 down in this contest. They fought their way back to 2-2 in extra time. And now, by virtue of a 3-1 victory on penalties, they are there. They've completed one small step on their road back to the Premiership. Joe Royle's team have done it.
Now then, sir, what do you think? What do you think now when you watch that?
You know, sort of get goosebumps when I watch it. It's it's nearly 20 years ago now, so the fact that we're still talking about it obviously proves that it's a a big moment in City's history. I was only 20 at the time, so I didn't really sort of understand how important it was, or well, I certainly think we'd be talking about it 19 years after. But yeah, it was a great moment for me and my family, and one that I'll certainly never forget.
What was in your head?
Not a lot, probably same as now, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, I remember saving it. I remember saying to the linesman, "If I save this, is that it?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You sure?" He said, "Yeah." And I saved it, and I sort of waved the lads over with pulling this stupid face, which I never pulled before or after. And they started coming, and I just thought, I don't want this sort of feeling to end. So I hopped over the advertising boards then, as you could do at Wembley then, and sort of have a little run round back on the pitch. And
you could still have been running around now, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, Big Andy Morris, the last thing I wanted after that was a 20-man pile-on, so I couldn't get any air in my lungs. But yeah, just sort of relief and just everything coming out.
Absolute euphoria.
Oh, I can't explain it. And, I mean, winning sort of cup finals is great, but winning promotion sort of, it affects the whole club for the years to come. So we had to get out of that division at the first attempt, and luckily we did.
Manchester United had just won the treble, hadn't they? A few days before they won the European Cup, as I think they still call it then.
Against Bayern Munich, they were sort of dead and buried with a minute to go, and they did the unthinkable, and so it must have been something in the Manchester water that week.
Yeah, they scored a couple of goals right at the end. Solskjaer, I think, got the winner against Bayern Munich, and then you did that, which arguably topped it. The circumstances and everything.
Yeah, and obviously we went up, and then the next season we went up again. So
yes, this was under Joe Royle. And in part 2 we'll talk about Joe and also Kevin Keegan, who was another of your managers. I mean, you worked with some really big stars, didn't you, at City and places like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it went Joe Royle, Kevin Keegan, Stuart Pearce, so sort of all England internationals. So yeah, I worked with some great managers, some great players, some great goalkeepers.
Absolutely.
So I was lucky that during my 10 years there, it was a special time.
I mean, Peter Schmeichel, David Seaman, and David James were 3 of the goalkeepers that you worked with at Manchester City. So there's a whole lot more chat to come along those lines on Sheffield Wednesday lines about the 2 keepers. I mean, as we go into the break, it's kind of a transitional phase at the minute for the club, isn't it? Really?
I think so. Yeah, obviously, I think whenever a new manager gets appointed, it's always a transitional phase, and it took us a little bit of time to settle down. Obviously the injuries have been not great for us, but in recent weeks we've had some good form, won some games, so made sure we got clear with the relegation. And
okay, excellent. James Craig will join us. Loads going on in the sporting world. Nicky will still be here. Hope you will. 5 minutes. See you then.